Hi, this is Victoria Buxar. I'm just going to go ahead and present my graphic that I came up with. So I chose to do a graphic that basically showed how one theory or process of a theory leads into another. So I kind of use these arrows because I felt like one theory doesn't quite explain everything we need to know. So I felt like everything just goes around and around. So I took this graphic and I broke it up into more detailed parts. So when I looked at the sociocultural perspectives, I really felt a connection to the shared meanings. With socioculture, I felt like these are the reasons why students create writing pieces. They're going to share information, share meanings, share things that they know or that they've learned. And I liked how they represented it as show representations of the world. Also, going into the social cultural perspectives, the writing process and how it applies to an audience. I think that that is the hardest part of teaching writing in second grade is getting students to understand that there's an audience. Someone else is going to read this piece. So I did definitely have a lot of reflection on that part as well. In addition to that, just really learning the other piece that struck a chord was learning to write outside of school requires new writing, and I definitely see that, especially being home with my children now. One of the things my daughter did every Friday with her second grade teacher was every Friday they did a family journal, and she would write to somebody in the family and we would write back to her. And I really thought that experience was great. But then I look at her writing that she would, just do randomly around the house, and it was, it almost seemed like there was a different voice in the writing. So you could tell that one, she was being instructed. She had to use temporal order words. She had to tell something about that was happening in the class that week. But when she's home, her writing to me is much different. So, going into the cognitive perspective, I appreciated the background of this perspective because a lot of it really just rang true to what I see in students. One of the things that I really took notice of was the knowledge, strategies, and motivation are key to writing. So, that is, I think, something taken those three aspects. I think it's really difficult to for a student to apply all three. And then the other part that I really took note of was the transcription. So it's so true. Beginning writers require more effort when it comes to transcription. So also the handwriting fluency and the writing achievement. I can't tell you how many times I can have a student dictate to me what they want to write about, but actually putting pencil to paper, it's pretty difficult. And then the self-regulation was also a really interesting piece to me, and the motivation piece. Definitely see motivation issues in second grade. So reading about the cognitive perspective, it really answered a lot of questions I had as to the writing teacher that I am. So looking at new literacies, this particular chapter started out, I kind of felt like really fuzzy all over the place. But then I started really applying it to what I see, not only being home teaching my children, but also teaching second graders. And I know it's pretty small here, but the research and as it applies to the problem solving skills in video games and digital storytelling. So, one of the things that my son loves to get on his video games, but I do try to kind of withhold that. But actually, in this point in time, it's become a form of socialization. And he will, do a Google Meet on one screen, and then he'll be playing his video game on another, and he's discussing things back and forth. And then my daughter, she does a lot of texting. Back and forth with her friends. So where we're looking at new literacies, I think this is a very prominent thing that we're seeing right now, especially given COVID-19. And then this last one, writing process theory. I will be honest, this was a difficult chapter for me. I felt like I had to keep going back and rereading and taking notes, and that's why my notes are kind of all over the place on this one. But when I really was able to take notes and absorb it and I broke it down, the task environment and the task complexity really spoke to it, really made a lot more sense to me when I really looked at it as, it's true, the text quality depends on the task. So I know that right now, with my second graders working from home, we're encouraging them to either write a story or write a letter. You can definitely see what they're more interested in. Some of them just want to write letters saying how much they miss me and their gen ed teacher. So I definitely see how the task environment affects the quality of the task, as well as vocabulary. I definitely saw the connection between vocabulary affecting the writing skill. And what was really interesting to me was the revising process and the rereading. So when students are rereading early on, it doesn't provide an outcome of higher reading or higher writing quality. But when they use the generation of ideas early and reread later in text development, definitely see more success. So this is the statement that I came up with. I know the visual, it's a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and just read from it. So I put, in looking at the four theories, I was able to identify with a piece of each theory. In reference to the socioculture theory, the consequence of writing resonated with me. The theory behind writing being a way to share meaning with others and appeal to an audience is a skill that is not easy to teach the elementary students I work with. In the cognitive perspective, I found many explanations for the struggles my students face with writing. I appreciated the explanation as to why younger students may struggle with transcription. And again, and I did mention that earlier in my piece, I often struggle with that, especially with the Google Docs, the speak to text option. I let a lot of students use that, and I wonder, is that really promoting writing? But this, I feel like, backs up my strategies for my struggling writers. I felt better informed by the theory on self-regulation for students to use skills and strategies in writing. Most important to me was motivation and self-efficacy among writers and the important role of each in writing. The new literacies theory relates to the current situation we're in now with COVID-19 pandemic. Students' ability to navigate technology so well is a welcomed aid in this remote learning experience. And again, socializing even has become all through screens and texting. So it has also provided students in quarantine with an outlet for socialization through texting and gaming, like I just said. Last, the writing process theory provided insight on generating ideas and rereading text throughout the process. Even as I write this statement, I will not reread it until the end, and the task will be much more complete in doing so, just as stated in this theory. And I did take note of the fact that that is the kind of writer that I am. I write, and then I go back. In this pandemic, I work one-on-one with one of my students with autism, and one of the goals that we work on is writing. And so often I have to say, hands off the keyboard, just type or say it, and then we go back to it. So it's funny, right now I have a dog and a child knocking at the door. So William, I can certainly relate to you when it comes to children and, crying in the background. So I look forward to seeing your videos, and